Hey, Steve Wilson from Grand Junction, Colorado, here to talk about our paths toward health or toward disease. It's kind of like getting a gift or going to the store and saying, I got a picture of a person that I want to emulate. I want to look like this. What's the box that I need to buy? And you're going to buy a box that's got all these parts in it, food parts, if you will. And one is going to be filled with such things as processed foods, fast foods, sugars, stress, foods that are not real. And as we get on that trail, the door is wide open, the gate is there, and you're going to start down that road, and all we're asking you to do is stop and think a little bit. Because you see, it's on this road that's loaded with such things as diabetes, cardiovascular issues, heart attacks, cancer, strokes, and at the core of it, it seems like obesity is now taking effect. In fact, there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Walter Willett from Harvard Med School. He says the weight sits like a spider at the center of an intricately tangled web of health and disease. And that seems to be on that side. And one of the things that I recognize is the word discipline does not show up over there. Basically, what shows up is to feel good. If it feels good, do it. Doesn't make any difference whether there's discipline or if there's knowledge involved. It's just fill your stomach. Now, on the other side of the road, which is the side that I would like for you to look at and consider, is that box has a pretty you involved, and the entry is small, but it expands into an incredible lifestyle. But that door calls for an intelligent and a disciplined lifestyle. In fact, as we look at this whole thing, Irma Bombach made the statement that life seems to be nothing but a chair of bullies. It's pretty scrambled. So you're looking at two approaches to life. One where we're looking at foods that are alive and they generate life versus foods that are dead and they generate death. Now, it should be kind of an easy solution from there, but it's not because of convenience, and you need to have knowledge, and the other side is discipline. Now, one side that I'm talking about says where there's discipline, there's freedom. And the other side says, basically, the lack of discipline gives you freedom. You need to talk about those because, you see, they're not the same. So, this whole thing of looking at foods that are alive and real and have frequency, they give you clarity of mind. There's a reason to live. There's energy versus a side over here where depression rests. And depression forms in the gut. And along with that, seems like suicide, drugs, and alcohol are an intricate part of that world. So let's consider those two choices, because that's all life is a series of choices. Would you trade a healthy, energized body for that old, tired, beat-up thing that we currently live in? Recognizing that what you begin to eat today, you're going to build the house that you're going to move into in a few years. And if you don't like what you got right now, and you keep eating the same things, maybe that house is even going to be worse, filled with more pain, filled with more fatigue, and less drive. So that's what we'd like to do. It's within that realm that the things that I'm faced with on a daily basis, as we start this conversation of getting people to understand how they got in the fix they're in, they look at me and they say, if I'd only known, life would have been different. And that's what started mine. You know, I come from a farming background, evangelical, fundamentalist with a whole lot of Hebrew involved. And I broke away from that when I got into the service and chose to do things my own way. And all I did was get older and sicker. And by the time I got to be age 50, I looked in the mirror and I did not like it. In fact, my skin told me that inwardly I was really quite healthy. Well, it didn't need to be telling me because, I had aches and pains, a little bit of obesity, and just a host of things that I knew was putting me on a road toward a position that I didn't like. And it's with that that I began to return to my original lifestyle. That transformation was incredibly good. 20 years later, I'm not the same person. Low blood pressure, physically fit, more fit than I was 30 years ago. So what drove that? Well, I thought about my ways and I turned my feet toward your instructions. That comes from Psalms 119, verse 59. There is restoration by simply following the principles, not only biochemically, which makes sense with what was laid out in Scripture for me to understand, and I made that change. The most important thing is, if we get to people when they're young, maybe they don't have to go as far down this road of disease as I did. And their life would be more fun, would be filled with fewer aches and pains, and it would be a whole lot more profitable to them. So let's look at what we could do with that. The first place that I looked was the acidity versus alkalinity. That's what your blood is. Your blood prefers an alkaline base, as does your body. So if you're slightly alkaline, lo and behold, you just don't get as sick and you recover much more rapidly. So if you're slightly acidic, that's where disease and fatigue live. So the foods that we eat, when they metabolize, will either go to an acidic or they will go to an alkaline side. Fruits and vegetables, when they metabolize, leave an alkaline ash. Proteins and sugars and things that are synthetic seem to leave an acidic ash. Just think about what you're eating. Foods that have no life, no frequency, they're inorganic, and they're really quite dead. Why would a person put something that toxic into their body to generate the things that we know? It's from that we now are currently spending about $109 billion a year in things registered from health clubs to vitamins, supplements, and then to diets to lose the weight that we put on through poor eating habits. Well, there's a group that was sent around the world. They were technical folks looking at other cultures that were healthy. They called them the Centenarian Club because they lived to be 100 years old. And they found some interesting facts. One of the groups was in Okinawa, and they found that there was a common ground that went through all of them. One, they had purpose. They had purpose of life. Secondly, they ate wisely. They had a plant-based food. Well, that begins to fly right in the face of how we function here in the United States. But there was another side. They had a belonging. They were grouped together with people of the same mind. And that's what we're trying to do, is become that support team that allows you to lean on us and say, are we doing this thing correctly? Excuse me, my nose itches. But the production of that was 1/5 the cancers that we have here in the United States. The number of cancers that we have in the United States is mind-boggling, along with 1/6 the cardiovascular issues that we have in our culture of poor diet. Think about that trade. You would reduce the potential of these from cardiovascular disease and cancer by upwards to a sixth. Wow. So the things that we're trying to do is bring balance into your system, endurance, strength, and calmness. Those items, from my perspective, make up a healthy being. So how do we go about doing that? Well, let's talk about where our history comes in, because we have proven that there are those cultures that have chosen a different diet, live a different life, free perhaps of pain, free from disease, free from the discomforts of disease, and that hopelessness that lies out there. Is this the end result? Well, coming from my background, again, it says, if you will observe my mitzvah, I will establish with you in a people of freedom, and we will give you blessings of abundance. Your barns will be filled. That's a little Old Testament, but it's quite all right. You will lend money to nations. Well, that's hardly what we're doing in the United States today. On the other side, since it happens to be a land of freedom, you make your own choices. And if you choose to do it the way you'd like to do it, you will become an object of horror to all nations. You will become sick, insane, blindness. We have an epidemic in terms of eye issues today. Pivotal to this whole thing is it's a promise of being inflamed. Where there's inflammation, there's always disease, there's always fatigue. So the option was given simply. I have presented you today life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life, and you will live wonderfully, you and your descendants. That's what I would like to see you do. Take a look at what we're doing. The incredible spread and difference in my life from a world of pain and anguish at the age of 50 to a life of running and climbing the mountains at the age of 75. Join me in this. We will show you how to do it. Thank you.